Welcome to Decentralized News, our weekly coverage of the major headlines in Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency space. I'm your host, Peter, joined as always by Ozzy. We have some interesting stories this week, so let's jump right in. Please remember to do your own research. This is not financial advice. The big news this Monday morning, this happened suddenly on July 23rd, which is yesterday. Musk sparked widespread debate by announcing that he would change Twitter's logo to X. And it's July 24th and it's changed. Did you see this? This is wild. I
Yeah,
mean,
I
of course
mean,
it's wild.
it's all over Twitter or X, the everything app.
Yeah, I still type in Twitter when I'm going there, but it just takes me to X. I guess I'll get used to it. Like all
It's
my
still
little,
I type in Twitter and it's still X is still twitter.com. It's super interesting.
yeah, it's bizarre. It still feels like Twitter, but at the same time, eventually, I guess my mind's going to switch because it says X everywhere now. But crypto Twitter seems unsure what to think. Dan Held basically came out and said this is in kind of that space in between when he announced he was going to do it to when he did it, which was very short. He's such a maverick in that way. They said Twitter is iconic and Musk is quote unquote insane to propose renaming it to X. And then we had another crypto blogger, Tiffany Fong, and Peter McCormick, and another personality in this space went along with this sentiment, said she would still refer to the service as Twitter, rejecting the X branding. But other advocates support Musk's vision and point to his tweet from October and like what you said, in which he hinted at the development of a super app that will incorporate everything. So X being everything. And this was reiterated by the new CEO, Linda Yasarino, I think is how you say her name. And it hints at her tweet, kind of hints at the endless interaction, compatibility for a number of media types. Sorry about that. And integrated payments and banking from a July 24th tweet. Her exact tweet, her quote is X is the future state of unlimited interactivity centered in audio, video, messaging. And this is, I think, the key point for crypto payments and banking, creating a global marketplace for ideas, goods, services, and opportunity. Powered by AI, X will connect us all in ways that are just beginning to imagine.
Yeah, I don't get the whole X. Elon Musk originally named his son with Grimes X or X something. It, his kid, I couldn't figure out how to pronounce the name because it really wasn't a name. So it's kind of, to me, it's interesting. He has been hinting at the app of everything for a while now, and we've talked about he's talked about coins and wanting to integrate payments slash access to crypto trading. So it makes sense.
I mean, I'm not surprised he's trying to shake things up. He's that kind of a person. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. It doesn't surprise me that the CEO is reiterating those comments. I just don't understand necessarily why rebrand to X now. I would think once you integrate some of these features, you're better off rebranding to X because right now the functionality is still Twitter. It's not really changed, and until he changes it, I don't think people will stop referring to it as Twitter.
Yeah, and it's not like I'm gonna stop using it because he changed it to X. It's I don't know, not a big deal to me at the moment, but is he gonna completely change the platform? I don't. They're talking about using AI for like anti-censorship or to keep it truthful. But anyway, incorporating AI. There is this payments and banking and incorporating crypto. There's some hype around that. I don't know if you saw this, but on the same day, Elon Musk's location changed to a Doge symbol in his profile. When I looked at his profile, I didn't see that. It says XD, but there was some hype around Doge and Doge went up a little bit. People speculating there's going to be some announcement there, but nothing official has been announced.
Yeah, I think he often does these little Doge notifications for a very short period of time, sometimes only a matter of a couple hours. So it's very possible that you just missed it because he went and changed it after. He's he's a special man. He's a special guy. Although the
Yeah.
X branding does go in line with, if you think about it,
SpaceX.
SpaceX.
Right. Yeah.
He really
Yeah.
seems to like the end letters of the alphabet. If you think the Tesla Model Y, I think there's even a Tesla Model. Is there Tesla Model X?
Right. I don't know. I don't follow that side of it
Yeah,
for
I
sure.
think there's a Tesla Model X. I think the most common, or one of the more common models of Tesla. He really likes the end letters of the alphabet, and the Tesla Model X and the letter X seems to be of particular importance to him because all of his companies have at least something to do with X, whether it's Twitter now becoming X, SpaceX, or the Tesla Model X, which
Hmm.
was first manufactured in 2015. So one of the earlier models of Tesla.
Well,
So
there's been some new like monetization announcements. I don't make any money on Twitter, so it doesn't affect me.
you don't have a big enough
But
following, enough interactions, but we could.
oh yeah, I'm about to break 100, bro. But they're changing like the name of followers to something else. So yeah, just a lot going on. Interesting to watch. But in terms of related to crypto, there was kind of an interesting story that was on the sidelines of this. A token called X, linked to a now closed NFT marketplace, has surged more than 1,000% since Elon Musk's announcement on July 23rd. The obscure coin was trading at 0.000002 with virtual zero volume and liquidity, but by Monday morning, it had pumped 1,000% with volume surging past 50,000. And this was something that had closed like back in May or something, like they were done. So I thought that was an interesting little side story. Careful out there.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a way to short it. I don't know when people start figuring it out. But then I went and looked even at CoinGecko looking into this. There was multiple X tokens and a lot of them had some activity like AI, XAI, a couple different X ones. So yeah, interesting just to see the market react like that.
Yeah, and Doge got that 4%, but it's showing that people are being less reactive to Elon's Doge hype, even though it is causing a bit of hype.
Yeah, a little bit, but yeah, 4% is hardly a move. In general, the markets have been flat, at least Bitcoin and just the overall market cap. There's always outliers, and even a little bit down today. It's down like 3%, I think.
Yeah, it's down. Yeah, it's down about 3% since this morning, my time, and so yeah.
So not really affecting the overall market, and no new liquidity coming in or anything like that. Doesn't look like. But another little side story with this, or connected a little bit,
I mean,
WorldCoin.
I was gonna point out the fact that you called this the Elon Musk and the X story the biggest story, but it's really overshadowing another pretty important announcement from one of his competitors, OpenAI, which Elon Musk at one point worked with. Sam Altman, their current CEO, officially launched the WorldCoin project today or yesterday, with the core of the project World ID, which is basically digital passport using everyone's iris scans to prove you're not an AI, and with the goal of really transforming the financial system. It's already has 2 million users from its beta period. It's right now operating in San Francisco and Berlin, but they're trying to scale operations up to 35 cities and 20 countries.
Would you get your eye scan for some free WorldCoin?
I don't know if I would let someone have my eye scan for free WorldCoin. I do know my co-host for Not Crypto Bros just spent $50 buying some WorldCoin on the open market on Uniswap.
Yeah, this is one of those coins where my like Bitcoin maximalism comes out a little bit. Like I don't like it. I see it and I see the opportunity there, but I still don't like it. Like something spooks me out about it. seems kind of dystopian. So for example, one of the use cases they have is for like a universal basic income disbursement. So you could use your new ID, your biometric ID, but this is like a centralized system. So they would have some control over your
Scan, like your iris. Imagine that they could fake your scan, an
But
iris scan into a building and accuse you of a crime and take away your universal benefit, like basic income.
or there's just like your social score goes down, you say something you're not supposed to say, or you're accused of a crime, maybe you didn't, but it's this centralized power that now has control over income for you. I don't know that. Like I said, my inner maximalist comes out to this permissionless, decentralized money that I think is so powerful. But at the same time, like there's an opportunity here, and like your friends who bought, because it is an interesting idea. There do seem to be some use cases for it. So yeah, fascinating. There was a post from Ran Nooner. You're familiar with him?
Yeah, he's one of the big hosts of Crypto Banner.
So he connected the X and he was saying Elon Musk launches X with the purpose of possibly being half the world's financial system. The same day, what was his name? Sam Altman launches WorldCoin that is attempting to do the same thing. We know these two had beef after the OpenAI fallout. And then today it also came out that Putin signs a law which launches the Russian CBDC August 1st. And FEDNow quietly launches past June 20th, and what many are calling a groundwork for a US CBDC. So there just seems to be a lot of rumblings on, a changing financial system.
Absolutely. I mean, I think the Fed now coming out and doing so quietly is a perfect example of just, you got to watch what they're doing, not what they're talking about. And you've said that several times, and I think that's a perfect mention. I think FedNow is essentially the institutional side of the US CBDC, and the fact that it just quietly launched and not too much fanfare or criticism other than from US Congressman Warren Davidson, who's making a
Oh yeah.
name for himself. He's a Republican congressman and first elected in 2016, and he earlier introduced legislation to fire Gary Gensler in April, and has now posted that we should ban central bank digital currencies. Some pretty strong statements from a relatively new congressman.
He stressed the fact that the CBC could be is corrupt money and is a tool for coercion and control, easier to control, obviously, and that Congress must swiftly ban these CBDCs and criminalize the effort to design, build, develop, and test or establish CBDC. I thought that was interesting language. Criminalize the efforts. And he noted a job posting on Indeed, the website, by Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco, where they're looking to hire a senior crypto architect to develop a CBDC. And in another one, just his overall tone, another one of his recent tweets that the Federal Reserve is building the financial equivalent of the Death Star. I thought that was...
It's pretty interesting. I think there's a lot of discussion about how to fix our financial system, or how private industry is trying to change our financial system, and how the government is also trying to change it. We've also seen presidential candidate mention backing the US dollar with gold, silver, and or Bitcoin. So
Right, yeah.
the Bitcoin maxi himself is seeing kind of an argument that a lot of Bitcoin maxis have made themselves about backing the dollar with Bitcoin. And I think that's just a statement on...
Well, the dollar, though, I think like real maxis want to replace it with Bitcoin. They want like
Yeah,
a Bitcoin standard.
no, absolutely. The real maxis fully want to replace it, but I think one of the arguments is that it's a reserve currency. It can be used
Yeah.
as reserve currency. And so to me, this is essentially a Maxi's argument of backing the US dollar with Bitcoin. And if Robert F. Kennedy Jr. would be in office, then they would actually get that status, and it would therefore help inflate the price. That is one of the kind of supply arguments for Bitcoin, because
It
you
would
have
definitely be
creating
good
demand.
for it would definitely be good for Bitcoin and the price. However, if you believe in this argument that backing the US dollar with Bitcoin is a good idea, it seems like you may also believe in the argument that a Bitcoin standard would be okay or would be beneficial as well.
Yeah, exactly. So super interesting, and
We'll see how this plays out. Yes, there's
yeah,
a long road to hoe as far as how this is going to all play out, but exciting times nonetheless. Last week, we talked a lot about the SEC and the Ripple. We have some updates there, and also Coinbase. The SEC Ripple lawsuit was a big story last week. They hinted at a potential appeal, and like, where did this come from? Because they didn't have an official statement that said, oh, we're going to appeal it. We played their statement last week, and they're just like, oh, we're disappointed, and we're going to look at our opportunities. So where did this come from? So the United States Securities and Exchange has suggested it may appeal a recent ruling in the Ripple Labs case. The SEC argued that the ruling goes against fundamental securities laws and principles such as the Howey test. The SEC's latest comments on the Ripple Lab lawsuit were made in a separate lawsuit against Terraform Labs and its founder, Do Kwon. In SEC's July 21st, so a few days ago, response to a motion to dismiss from Terraform Labs. So this is where it comes from. The SEC highlighted a host of issues it holds against the court's recent decision on XRP. And here is the quote causing these headlines specifically. Respectfully, those portions of Ripple were wrongly decided, and this court should not follow them. SEC staff is considering the various available avenues for further review and intends to recommend that the SEC seek such review.
yeah, we rumored whether or not they were going to go for an appeal, and the arguments for and against, but the fact that they're using arguments about why the XRP ruling is wrong, and that they are considering available avenues for review in other cases, means this is not a case that they're letting go quite yet.
Yeah. Now, on the Ripple side, they're saying an appeal from the Securities Exchange does not represent a significant blow. And their main arguments, and this is according to a crypto lawyer, John Deaton, it would be 2 years from now before a decision is issued by the Second Circuit Court. That would be the court it would go to. And there's no guarantee it would be overturned. So their argument is that this is, in the interim, the law of the land, and that it would take 2 years for any decision to come down anyway. And there's no guarantee, even in that case, it would be overturned. But then you have a report on Friday from Bank of America, a big bank in the United States here. And they're saying like this ruling doesn't really clarify anything. And that comprehensive regulatory framework is what is crucial for mainstream adoption of digital assets and institutional engagement. The U.S. court's recent ruling does little to clarify the situation because XRP offerings were unique and the implications of the ruling are difficult to determine. That's what another kind of player in the system is saying.
Yeah, I think there is some clarity. I don't think the Bank of America's case is necessarily fully clear. I think it's more on the institutional side. They're asking, okay, if it's a security, how could they make it not a security, or how could they make it so that we could legally invest in crypto? And that's why they need basically the framework so that they can figure out how they can get that interaction. They don't necessarily care for the difference why the programmatic sales are not. And I think that's was considered a big win by many investors in the crypto space.
Yeah, for the retail side. And then you brought up watch what they do versus what they say. Although it's just a bit of both. He was doing it, but he was saying it in an official area. But the SEC's chair, Gary Gensler, basically went to Congress and asked for more money. And he cited the Wild West of crypto as a case to increase his agency's budget. So what is he going to do going forward? And it looks like he wants to keep doing what he's doing, and that's regulation with enforcement. So last Wednesday, the SEC, which has undertaken wide-ranging efforts to crack down on crypto crimes, they are seeking an additional $72 million to add dozens of additional full-time staff members. The SEC has a $2.3 billion fiscal year 2024 budget, but it's just not enough to support it, or it's only enough to support currently authorized staffing, and they want more, basically. So the SEC employs over 4,500 people, 4,685 people in 2023. The additional funding would help the agency add 170 positions to its team. And in addition to providing full year funding for staff members hired in 2023, but basically in total, bringing up their numbers to 5,139 employees, essentially to go after more
Yeah.
Doquan and
Yeah, basically.
needs.
Well, not just that, maybe try to target Polygon or Cardano or any of the other cryptos that they can go after for their institutional sales based on this XRP decision, even if they decide to continue appealing it, because they can use those institutional sale statements and decision as the basis for those lawsuits.
That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah. And just because it's on the institutional side doesn't mean it doesn't affect the retail investors. Because if they're having to, it's like in the XRP, we're talking about 728 million institutional sales. So they're going to have to sell Ripple in order to pay these things off. So it'll affect the retail investor, even though the programmatic sales were deemed not a security.
Oh, there's going to be massive impacts for the regular retail investor. I think people,
Can
maybe
play
this
it.
is, people are realizing it. We just haven't, it's not being widely discussed. I think we also need to see whether we talk about whether there's fines associated. I think the fines.
Yeah. It's like, how are these fines paid for?
Oh, yeah.
The sales of the token.
Most likely.
Yeah. The other big story we talked about last week was the Coinbase versus SEC. So this will have an effect on just the crypto landscape in general. The SEC accused Coinbase of offering unregistered securities through its platform. The SEC's complaint against Coinbase alleges that the cryptocurrency exchange has been operating as an unregistered broker since at least 2019. Coinbase is like, we filed an S1. We're listed on the stock exchange. We had to file with you. What are you talking about? But anyway, the lawsuit is entering a crucial phase with Judge Aaliyah issuing a scheduling order that outlines the key deadlines for submissions. So we have some dates. Coinbase is required to submit its legal briefs outlining its arguments and evidence and supporting documents by August 4th this year. On the other side, the SEC will present its own legal brief outlining its arguments and evidence on or before October 3rd. And then following this submission, the SEC, Coinbase has an opportunity to file a reply brief by October 24th. So we have some dates, definitely a story we'll be watching.
Yeah, we'll get to see some big arguments from the SEC and from Coinbase, although we're already getting some insights through the other cases going through the courts between the two of them. I think this will be interesting to see what they have to say that's different than what we've seen in other cases around crypto so far.
Yeah, well, we can get into some of the macro stuff. We got a big Fed meeting coming up Wednesday. We're recording this Monday. We're posting it Tuesday. So tomorrow, we got a Fed meeting. This comes on the heels of a dovish CPI report. And also the unemployment report was interesting, but affects it as well. And maybe the bigger reason why they're expected to raise rates. But anyway, the CPI rose at 3% annual pace last month, marking a significant slowdown from May's 4%, and coming in below expectations of 3.1. And maybe more significantly, growth in core prices, which strips out the volatile food and energy categories, also slowed more than expected to 4.8 annual pace, down from 5.3. This is the smallest 1 month climb in core prices since all the way back in August 2021.
Yeah. One important thing is that we're seeing core is still, and it's still quite high at a 4%, 4.8%. That's still over doubled their goal. And
But just the
by
fact when it moved, it seemed like it just wasn't moving at all.
it wasn't
So
moving for a while. We are seeing some movement. Some argue we're seeing some drop in housing prices in certain sectors, in certain cities. Others are arguing that rents in certain cities have dropped a little bit. Some suggesting it has to do with the return to the office, where certain cities where people were relocating because they could conduct remote work are either we're not having those relocations or people are being forced back to their original offices. There's a few different kind of arguments going on, but the fact that core is still so high, that's gonna be the argument. Even if CPI, non-core CPI isn't as nearly as high, they're gonna argue it's because food and energy rose so much last year. We're not seeing those same like rises in food prices and gas prices. Gas prices, at least in Canada, have been relatively stable most of this summer. We've seen small fluctuations, but nothing compared to what we were talking about last summer. And food has climbed, I think, a little bit more here in Canada this year than they did last year. But I think we got a little bit of a delay in those increases in food prices compared to the US. You guys felt it a little bit more last year. I remember the whole rage about eggs last year in the US in the summer.
yeah. Yeah, food still seems to be going up out here. At least in my personal experience out here in Hawaii, still trending up. Still hard to keep up with. That's for sure.
That's for sure. Yeah, food prices have been challenging. I've definitely seen my grocery bill go from, I think, for our household of two, it was 280 or 270 Canadian dollars, which is about 3/4 an American dollar for those Americans watching, to somewhere around probably almost 320 a month now, maybe some months even more. So definitely been feeling it, and it's definitely just a bit higher than I think anybody's comfortable with.
So inflation is still there. It's still growing. It's not at the 2% target. The labor market still expanding, not tightening. It's showing some signs, but still strong labor market. And the expectations are this Fed meeting coming up on Wednesday, they're going to raise rates.
Yeah, we were talking about this a little bit pre-show, and looking at it, God, we're 98.3% of respondents are expecting a quarter basis point hike, with the other 1.7% expecting a half basis point hike.
And it
So
seems like with the dovish CPI, there might have been an argument for not raising rates, but no, at all.
respondents are pretty firm that the rates are going up, and it's whether it's a quarter basis point or a half basis point. There's absolutely no one expecting a dovish Fed at this next meeting, and it's very interesting to see how expectations have shifted over the last week or two, especially if we were looking back into June. There's pretty heavy expectations that rates were going to potentially stay stagnant. But over the last week, we've seen expectations shift that even in September and all the way through to December, almost no respondents are expecting rates to go down. They're overall expecting rates to pause or continue increasing. If we look at September's expectations, it's 80% favoring rates having increased a quarter basis point and staying there, with the other 20% expecting another quarter basis point hike in September. In November, 60% are expecting rates to stay at the quarter basis point above current rates, with 35% expecting a quarter basis point hike and another 5% expecting a 50 basis point hike from from those levels with even a small 0.1%. What about expecting rates to hit 6% in November? So we're definitely seeing a massive change in expectations. At least one more rate hike after this one would line up with arguments that Larry Fink of BlackRock has made, saying that he expects 2 to 4 more rate hikes. So this one would be our first on Wednesday, and we will be at least expecting a second somewhere between now and the end of the year, with maybe the potentiality of one for through the rest of the year, 3 for through the rest of the year, or who knows? They could announce a pause.
They've done that once. We'll see when they announce it again. But so far, Jerome Powell is batting 100 in terms of doing what the market expects. So it would be utterly shocking if he didn't raise it on Wednesday. I think the only thing that may move markets is comments and just expectations for the next ones. And it seems like overall sentiment is we're gonna raise rates and generally pause, maybe one more. So anything off of those, any comments that kind of deviate from that?
Yeah, we're waiting on some other financial data later in the week. PCE, which is one of the Fed's more preferred measures of inflation, they're waiting on that to come in. Current expectations for core PCE are somewhere around 0.2 month over month, down from 0.3 last month. We don't have expectations right now for standard PCE or PCE year over year, but we're expecting core PCE to be about 4.2%, down from 4.6%. It's lower than CPI numbers, but still not near that 2% mark that the Fed has very clearly been talking about wanting to achieve. We're also looking at potential personal spending and personal income numbers, both expected to rise compared to last month's readings. So
We'll be watching, that's for sure. I'm always interested in his comments, although it seems not the most exciting Fed meeting. Sometimes these things are hyped up pretty good, but this one seemed to know what's going to happen. So not much hysteria around this one. But we did have a little bit of news in kind of the altcoin area. There was the WorldCoin story, which we talked about.
I just want to go back to for a second, just because Vitalik Buterin has also come out outlining some major risks of the WorldCoin project and founder of Ethereum. And right now, WorldCoin is operating on Ethereum.
I didn't know Alec came out flooding it. I didn't heard that.
Yeah,
What do you say about it?
he says that there's a lot of risks. There's a given registered account associated with it, and by having to have your I associated with it doesn't really get around it requires knowledge. It's like a permission system, whereas something like other projects being put forward, it's a zero knowledge based system. And so you don't necessarily know who it is. We can just prove that you're a person and that it is associated with, there's an account associated with you. So that's, I think, is a major kind of basis point right there.
So he's arguing there's ways where you could stay anonymous.
Yeah, and he thinks that's one of the
drawbacks. Yeah.
One of the major drawbacks.
That's what spooks me out about it is just, oh, you're going to scan my eye? No. It's like 23andMe where you can get your background, your family tree investigated. It's really interesting information in there, but you're giving like your DNA and all your information to like a centralized group. And I just wasn't interested in doing that.
Yeah, I think
there's something about that spooks me.
Oh, absolutely. And I think it really seems to spook Vitalik Buterin. He thinks there's going to be unavoidable privacy leaks, erosion of people's ability to navigate the internet anonymously, coercion by authoritarian governments, and the potential impossibility of being secure at the same time as being decentralized. And I think that's just a perfect argument to sum up why decentralization is important. He does argue that the proof of personhood is important, given that we are going to be given the fact that we've got so much spam, and AI is now facilitating a lot of micro interactions. But he does think that there's some very challenging things with how WorldCoin works and the tokenomics and the centralization of it.
All right. And just to go back to the Chainlink story. So Chainlink, and very old coin, one of the kind of the OG altcoins, had its best rally since May 2021 after a CCIP release. So Chainlink has notched its biggest single day rally in more than 2 years following the release of its cross-chain interoperability protocol to developers. The CCIP aims to enhance communication and data transfer between various protocols. So the interoperability and being a front runner on that. So the CCIP works by using Chainlink's oracles, which is its original use case, a network of data providers. Developers can create products on top of the CCIP, which means smart contracts on one blockchain can send messages via Chainlink oracles to another blockchain, verifying data in the process. Developers on Polygon, Optimism, Ethereum, and Avalanche can now use Chainlink's CCIP. Why did it pump? It's generating revenue. So the CCIP has generated more than $12,000 in Link revenue in the 4-day snapshot, roughly between July 18th through July 21st. So maybe something to watch. There's a June analytics. Maybe we can post that in the show notes to watch. Is it going to be generating revenue? Is there more adoption? But anyway, yeah. So interesting to watch.
It's super interesting. I think the Link is one of those tokens that won't disappear because it's generating revenue and it has a really strong use case with its oracles and interoperability. It was a 20% to almost 21% rally on the day last Thursday, but it's also had a 10% or a 14% day a week before that on the Thursday, and had a 10% day on June 23rd. So it's had some pretty big days. I guess since June, really. It hit its low around $5, and it hit as high as 8.5, but we've now pulled back over 8% of more than 8% of that 1-day rally to about $7.50 at the time of recording. So we are seeing some strong price movements from Link, but we're also,
I think it's like a
seeing it
reminder if
pull
you
back.
take a kind of zoom out a little bit and you're looking for value in altcoins that are still going to be here after the bear market, right? Shakes out a lot of junk. There's a lot of stuff that comes up in the bulls. Chainlink has been around a long time. This, again, not financial advice, but when you're looking for kind of, if you're a value investor looking for altcoins that'll still be here, this is an interesting one. A reminder that it still has some life to it. And there's an argument that it will be here after the next bull run comes. Reminded me about Link. I don't think Link didn't buy any with this pump or anything like that, but it reminded me to do a little due diligence, a little research on it.
Yeah, to give you
Or
a
is
bit of
an
an
interesting
idea,
altcoin.
it's sitting just shy. The price in May or June of 2022, so about a year ago, was $9.8. It hit a low of just below $4.7 in June of this year, but it's been sitting in this range between about $8.50 and $5.6 for the last year. But if you look at all-time highs, or somewhere
Almost 50.
$53.
Yeah.
So there's definitely some opportunities to the upside, and
For a fairly stable altcoin. They're all very risky, and please be careful out there. But yeah, an interesting one nonetheless.
Yeah, and I think they're they're one of the altcoins where they're outside of a chain that has a really strong use case. And I think that's going to be really interesting as we see coins weeded out heading into this next bull market.
Right on. I think that's our show for today. Thanks for joining me, Ozzy, as always.
Glad to be here, man. Always enjoy doing the show with you.
And thanks everyone for listening to Decentralized News, not centralized news. We post to YouTube first, so please consider subscribing to catch the videos as soon as they drop. Our goal is to provide unfiltered content, our biased, unfiltered content that will help foster genuine discussions to help the entire space grow. Please remember, this is not financial advice and we are not financial advisors. This show is presented for educational and entertainment purposes only. Please do your own research before making any investment decisions, including on Chainlink. Thanks for your support and stay tuned for the next episode.